At approximately 9 p.m. on the 7600 block of South Vincennes Avenue, 26-year-old Arianna G.R. Carter was shot multiple times while stopped at a red light with her child in the back seat. The shooter, driving a dark-colored vehicle, pulled alongside her car, opened fire, and fled the scene. Responding officers found Carter unresponsive at the wheel. No arrests have been made. Detectives described the incident as a targeted attack, but have not identified a suspect or established a motive. Ballistic surveillance and witness statements have produced no conclusive leads. Months later, the investigation remains open but inactive, with community activists and family members continuing to demand answers. The circumstances surrounding Carter's death highlight a recurring pattern of unsolved ambush-style shootings in Chicago's South Side, cases defined by silence, limited evidence, and unanswered questions that persist long after the crime scene tape is removed. Stay with us as we unravel this shocking story and uncover the heartbreaking details of what led to this senseless loss. Before we begin, let us know in the comments, where are you watching from, and what are your thoughts as the story unfolds? Welcome to True Crime Tales, where we reveal the crimes that shock communities and the secrets hidden behind closed doors. These are real people, real events, real consequences. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Now, let's begin. Arianna G.R. Carter was born and raised on Chicago's South Side, in a neighborhood where the line between survival and danger often blurred. She grew up in a modest household. Her mother worked long hours. Her father's presence was inconsistent, and she learned early how to be self-reliant. Neighbors recall her as quiet and reserved but strong-minded. Teachers described her as smart but distracted, often preoccupied with matters beyond her age. By her late teens, Arianna had become well known in her community for her beauty and her loyalty to those close to her. She attended local schools, held short-term jobs, and spent much of her time focused on her family. Interviews with childhood friends depict her as sweet but serious, someone who rarely discussed her personal life openly. As Chicago's neighborhood rivalries intensified, Arianna's environment shaped her worldview. She kept to herself but understood the dynamics of the streets around her. Her upbringing placed her in proximity to people connected to the South Side's ongoing conflicts, though she was not known to be directly involved. In her early 20s, Arianna became a mother to a young boy who quickly became the center of her world. Those close to her say motherhood changed her priorities entirely. She worked small jobs, cared for her son, and often spoke about wanting to leave the neighborhood for somewhere safer. Raising a child alone on the South Side came with daily challenges. Keeping steady work, maintaining safety, and protecting her child from exposure to street life. Friends say she was protective and rarely brought outsiders into her personal space. She didn't have people in and out her house. One neighbor said, she moved quiet. Despite her efforts to stay clear of trouble, her connections through past relationships made her visible to people from both sides of the city's ongoing gang rivalries. Arianna's most publicized relationship was with a man known locally as 757 BA, a reputed member of a South Side faction. BA, now serving a prison sentence for a murder conviction, was identified by several sources as her child's father. Their relationship was complex, built on love and loyalty, but shadowed by the risks associated with his lifestyle. Those who knew Arianna say she struggled to balance her affection for him with the dangers attached to his name. While she was not a street figure herself, her connection to BA linked her to a network of individuals involved in conflicts and ongoing feuds. Detectives would later examine whether this association made her a potential target. Her love life, once private, became public in the aftermath of her death. Investigators reviewed online exchanges, old messages, and photos that documented her relationship timeline with BA. They explored whether anyone harboring resentment toward him could have targeted her as retribution. Friends and acquaintances described Arianna as someone who lived between two worlds, a nurturing mother and a woman who had learned to navigate an environment ruled by fear and loyalty. Her social media pages told a story of duality. Photos showed her smiling with her son, enjoying family time, but her captions occasionally hinted at coded expressions understood by those familiar with street culture. After her death, tribute posts flooded social platforms. filled with nicknames, memories, and coded references to the life she once led. Many of those who posted had ties to different South Side sets, further complicating the perception of who might have had motive. Voiceovers and interviews emphasized this contradiction. She was in the streets, but she was around them. The line defined the challenge investigators would face in separating Arianna's personal life from the violence that surrounded it. On the day of her death, October 29th, 2025, Arianna's morning began as usual. Phone records show calls to family and messages about errands. She had picked up food and was heading home when traffic slowed near the 7600 block of South Vincennes. GPS and surveillance footage later confirmed her route through familiar streets. At approximately 3:42 p.m., Arianna stopped at a red light. Her son was seated behind her in a car seat. Another vehicle approached, slowing beside her. There was no recorded argument, no honking, just seconds of silence before the shooting began. Witnesses later told police they heard rapid pops, estimated between 10 to 15 gunshots. Shell casings recovered confirmed at least 15 rounds fired from a semi-automatic weapon. The bullets shattered the driver's side window and pierced the door panels. The child screamed but was physically unharmed. A 911 call was placed from a nearby resident who reported a woman shot in her car. Responding units arrived within minutes. Officers found Arianna slumped over the steering wheel. Paramedics transported her to the University of Chicago Medical Center, where she was pronounced dead shortly after arrival. Her child was safely removed from a vehicle and placed in protective custody until family arrived. By the evening, news of the shooting had spread across social media. Photos of the scene circulated, tagged with hashtags like #JusticeForAri and #SouthsideChicago. Crime scene technicians recovered 15 9mm shell casings near the driver's side. The trajectory indicated shots fired from a moving car positioned parallel to Arianna's. The precision and angle supported the theory of a targeted attack rather than random crossfire. Detectives retrieved footage from nearby traffic cameras. One clip showed a dark sedan speeding away moments after shooting. The car's make and model could not be conclusively identified due to glare from sunlight and poor camera resolution. No visible license plate data were recovered. Multiple witnesses came forward, but their descriptions varied. Some reported a black sedan. Others claimed gray or dark blue. None were able to identify the shooter. Importantly, all confirmed there was no argument, chase, or verbal exchange before shots were fired, consistent with a planned ambush. From the outset, investigators classified the shooting as targeted. Background checks on Arianna's known associates and communications led detectives to explore possible retaliation theories. The name of her incarcerated partner, 757BA, surfaced repeatedly in online speculation linking the incident to ongoing conflicts following the death of another figure known as Bezu. Police reviewed Arianna's phone activity, social media accounts, and connections to individuals affiliated with known factions. The working theory suggested she may have been targeted either as a message or due to mistaken association. Early leads focused on rival groups who had exchanged threats online in preceding weeks. Despite digital evidence, progress stalled. The community's silence became a significant obstacle. Fear of retaliation prevented witnesses from coming forward, and online posts spread misinformation, clouding the investigation. Months passed with no arrests. Forensics did not produce a ballistic match, and surveillance footage remained inconclusive. Detectives continued interviews, reanalyzed phone data, and requested federal assistance for digital tracing, but the case eventually grew cold. By the one-year mark, Arianna G.R.E. Carter's killing remained unsolved. A young mother gunned down in daylight. Her child left to witness the event. The investigation, like many others on Chicago's South Side, reflected a cycle of violence where answers rarely surfaced and justice moved at a pace far slower than grief. In the days following the murder of Arianna G.R.E. Carter, the streets of Chicago's South Side filled with whispers and coded messages online. The case seemed simple on the surface. A young mother ambushed at a red light with her child in the back seat. But as investigators dug deeper, a web of gang connections, digital footprints, and silent witnesses began to form a complex picture that no one wanted to see clearly. Almost immediately, online chatter linked Arianna's death to an earlier, high-profile street hit. the killing of THF-46 Bezu, a well-known figure in Chicago's gang hierarchy. Bezu, associated with the THF-46 set, had a reputation that reached beyond local blocks. His murder had already set off speculation of revenge cycles between rival factions. Within this volatile landscape, Arianna's death was framed by many a symbolic retaliation, a warning shot, a message, or an act of street-level justice. Unconfirmed sources claim that Arianna's connection to 757BA, her child's father, placed her squarely in the middle of the ongoing feud. BA, a known affiliate of the 757 set, was currently serving time for murder, a crime that itself was alleged to be connected to gang disputes. In street culture, relationships often extend the reach of revenge. Who you love, who you talk to, and where you're seen can carry deadly weight. While police have yet to confirm the motive, digital investigators noticed a sudden rise in social media posts referencing both Bezu and Wooga World shortly after the shooting. Each post, filled with coded slang and half-said threats, hinted at a chain of retaliation that might have been waiting for the right moment to strike. To understand the dynamics behind Arianna's killing, it's necessary to map the overlapping territories and loyalties that define the South Side. On one side is THF-46, historically connected to the O-Block/300 network. On the other side sits 757, a smaller but deeply embedded faction with alliances and rivalries stretching through Englewood and surrounding areas. Then there's Wooga World, the block where Arianna was killed, a zone often tied to older disputes and newer grudges. Each of these sets maintains fluid relationships. Members date across boundaries, trade information, or even temporarily cooperate. But one act of violence can collapse these fragile truces. In this environment, a personal disagreement can easily evolve into a territorial or retaliatory killing. Investigators studying Arianna's murder are forced to navigate not just who pulled the trigger, but which line that act was drawn along. At the center of the speculation sits B.A., Arianna's child's father. Arrested 2 years prior for a fatal shooting, B.A.'s name still carries weight in certain circles. His conviction for murder secured him a lengthy prison term, but not immunity from street politics. People connected to him, even indirectly, can become targets in power plays, revenge attempts, or perceived acts of disrespect. Analysts have pieced together that Arianna remained loyal to B.A. during his incarceration. Her social media reflected coded support posts, occasionally using phrases or emojis that reference his crew. To those outside the lifestyle, it seemed like affection. To those inside, it could be read as allegiance. Whether Arianna was killed because of her relationship with B.A. or for a completely separate reason remains unclear. Police are examining the timeline of B.A.'s prior case, the enemies it produced, and whether any of them resurfaced shortly before her death. The most troubling theory remains that Arianna paid for B.A.'s past actions, collateral damage, and an ongoing street vendetta. Not every investigator agrees with the revenge theory. Some suggest Arianna's murder could have stemmed from something far more personal: jealousy, betrayal, or internal conflict. Friends describe her as private but social, often keeping a small circle that changed subtly over the months. Detectives have reviewed calls and messages that hint at rising tension between Arianna and another woman linked to her social group. Another theory points toward mistaken identity. The shooter, according to witness accounts, approached swiftly and fired with precision. However, if the vehicle or driver was misidentified, Arianna's killing could have been an unintended casualty of confusion in the fast-moving cycles of street retribution. As of now, none of these angles have been publicly confirmed. The silence surrounding the investigation, from both law enforcement and those close to the streets, deepens a mystery rather than clears it. In the digital age, phones tell stories even when voices do not. Detectives secured warrants to access Arianna's online accounts, revealing fragments of her last digital hours. Texts, deleted DMs, and archived posts showed a mixture of normal activity, arranging childcare, chatting with friends, alongside more cryptic exchanges about people watching her moves. One now deleted Instagram story featured her sitting in the car she'd later be killed in, captioned, "Energy off lately." Authorities have not disclosed who she messaged that night, but forensic recovery teams traced several unsent messages, likely deleted before she died. Investigators are working to determine whether any of those conversations pointed toward a threat or warning. Her disappearance from digital life after the attack, no new posts, comments filled with RIP messages, transformed her accounts into public memorials, flooded with speculation and misinformation. Perhaps the most haunting detail of this case is the confirmed presence of Arianna's young son in the backseat. The boy survived physically unharmed, but became the only direct witness to the fatal attack. Paramedics arriving at the scene reported finding him crying and calling for his mother as officers cordoned off the vehicle. Authorities quickly placed the child into the care of relatives. Child trauma specialists were brought in to assess his mental state. According to experts, children who witness violence, especially the killing of a parent, face lifelong emotional and psychological challenges. Protective services now monitor his adjustment, working with trauma counselors to help him process what no child should ever have to see. The tragedy underscores a growing issue in Chicago's homicide landscape. The increasing number of minors directly exposed to violent acts tied to adult conflicts. The community's response to Arianna's death was immediate but conflicted. Family members organized a candlelight vigil near the intersection of 76th and Vincennes, where her life was taken. Balloons bearing her name rose into the night sky as mourners played her favorite songs. Her mother's statement at the funeral, pleading for justice, was brief and cautious. The fear of retaliation loomed even over moments of mourning. Neighbors described the area as one where people mind their business. Many heard the gunfire but refused to speak with police, citing distrust built over years of unclosed cases. People get shot for less, one resident said, declining to be named. Meanwhile, online tributes became both comfort and chaos. Murals, TikTok edits, and hashtags of her name mixed with false claims and speculation about suspects. For investigators, sorting truth from noise became an uphill battle. The silence, fear, and coded language that surround Arianna Carter's killing leave it suspended between rumor and fact. Whether her death was revenge, betrayal, or something darker remains an unanswered question, one that continues to echo through the same streets where her name is still whispered. Months have passed since the night Arianna Carter was found slumped in her car, the engine still running, a small child crying from the back seat. Chicago police marked the scene, gathered shell casings, and took photographs. Then, like many other murders in the South Side, the case began to cool. Detectives assigned to the 7th District Homicide Unit confirmed what many in the neighborhood already suspected. This was not a random shooting. It appeared to be targeted. But targeted by who, and for what reason, remained unclear. In early reports, investigators mentioned multiple witnesses near the 7600 block of South Vincennes that night. Yet, as weeks passed, most either disappeared or refused to cooperate. The combination of fear, retaliation threats, and distrust of law enforcement led to silence, a silence that has become characteristic in cases like Arianna's. As of now, Arianna Carter's murder remains unsolved. Despite public outcry and family pressure, police have not made any arrests. No charges filed. No official suspects named. The case file sits within the Chicago Police Department's backlog of unresolved homicides, one among hundreds still open in the South Side precincts. Detectives have labeled the case pending investigative leads. The phrasing is procedural, a placeholder until new information surfaces. Behind closed doors, detectives acknowledge that the evidence gathered wasn't enough to move the case forward. No usable fingerprints. No clear surveillance footage. No confirmed eyewitnesses. Only street speculation and the haunting image of a mother's car riddled with bullets at a red light. As official momentum slowed, rumors filled the gap. Neighborhood sources, online forums, and social media pages began circulating unverified claims about the possible identity of the shooter. Street chatter suggested that Arianna's death was connected to the earlier murder of THF-46 Bezu, a known figure in Chicago's complex web of gang affiliations. Others claimed it was retaliation, not necessarily for something she did, but for who she was connected to. Arianna was reportedly the longtime partner of a man known locally as B.A., a member of the 757 crew, currently serving time for murder. Within that ecosystem, proximity itself can be dangerous. The line between being involved and being associated often blurs. Still, None of these rumors translated into concrete police leads. Detectives interviewed known associates, cross-referenced alibis, and ran firearm traces, but each path hit a wall. Without cooperation from witnesses or tangible forensic evidence, every suspect remained speculative. Community activists and local anti-violence organizers have repeatedly called for updates on the case. Vigils have been held at the intersection where Arianna was killed. Posters reading "Justice for Giari" appeared briefly around the neighborhood before being weathered away. Organizations like Mothers Against Street Violence and Southside Women's Safety Network have spoken publicly about the lack of attention given to female homicide victims. They argue that cases involving women connected to street-affiliated men are deprioritized, seen as inevitable outcomes of their environment rather than tragedies worth solving. At several city meetings, activists have confronted local officials about the growing list of unsolved killings of young mothers, women who are neither anonymous nor disposable, yet treated as both. The investigative paperwork reflects a pattern of obstacles. Ballistics report: the recovered shell casings were entered into National Integrated Ballistic Information Network, NIBIN. No matches were found linking the weapon to previous shootings in Chicago's database. DNA analysis: partial genetic material was recovered from 2 shell casings. However, due to contamination and incomplete sequences, the results were deemed inconclusive. Phone records: Arianna's cell phone data offered no indication of threats prior to the incident. Call logs revealed typical conversations, messages to family, social media activity, and routine navigation usage before the light turned red. Surveillance review: detectives canvassed nearby businesses for footage. Several cameras were inactive or angled away from the street. A single grainy frame captured a dark vehicle speeding away, but license plates were unreadable. Without definitive evidence, the case began to stall. Interviews with detectives from the 7th District reveal an internal tension between workload and willpower. With rising homicide numbers across the city, each investigator carries multiple open cases at once. One detective, speaking under condition of anonymity, summarized the sentiment: "We know who did it, but no one will talk." That phrase, echoed across Chicago's precincts, reflects both the knowledge of the streets and the limits of the system. Detectives often receive tips pointing toward known figures, but without testimony or evidence, they can't move forward. Even when informants step up, retraction is common once the risk becomes real. In Arianna's case, one initial witness reportedly agreed to provide a statement, but never returned to the station after a first interview. The frustration is evident in the tone of the final case notes. Subject information limited. No cooperative witnesses. Investigation ongoing. Arianna's killing is part of a broader pattern emerging across Chicago's South and West Sides, drive-by or side-by-side shootings at intersections. Over the past 3 years, data from the Chicago Police Department shows an uptick in targeted ambushes occurring at red lights or stop signs. These settings provide minimal escape routes and high vulnerability, especially for individuals being followed. From 2022 to 2025, at least 12 confirmed ambush-style shootings occurred under similar conditions. Vehicles pull up beside the victim. Shots are fired through windows, and the attackers flee before police arrival. Few result in arrests. These ambushes share several traits. Victims are often known or loosely connected to street crews. The shootings are swift and planned. Surveillance rarely captures the full act. Motives remain speculative: retaliation, warning, or mistaken identity. Arianna's death fits squarely within this pattern. A woman alone at a light, a sudden burst of violence, and a swift disappearance into the night. Traditionally, Chicago's gang-related violence has centered around male victims. However, recent statistics show a rise in the number of women killed in targeted or proximity-based shootings. Sociologists describe this as an extension of street conflict, where women, partners, or relatives of men involved in rival crews become indirect participants through association. Arianna's death underlines this shift. She wasn't publicly active in street life. Friends describe her as a mother focused on her child and her social media following. Yet, her proximity to individuals and ongoing conflicts placed her within a risk zone she may never have fully understood. For many young women in Chicago's high-tension neighborhoods, love, loyalty, or simple location can become life-threatening variables. Sociological analysis of cases like Arianna's reveals a recurring cost. Even those who step away from violence often remain tethered to its orbit. Interviews with community researchers and violence prevention advocates reveal that relocation programs for women associated with street-affiliated men are minimal. Protection resources are nearly non-existent unless charges are filed. Social stigma prevents victims from coming forward before it's too late. These systemic gaps mean that individuals like Arianna, who might have been aware of rising tensions, often have nowhere to turn. A deeper look into the case exposes systemic weaknesses beyond individual tragedy. Witness protection deficiency. Chicago's witness protection program is underfunded. Potential informants lack relocation support, leading to widespread fear of retaliation. Community distrust. Years of unresolved cases have eroded faith in police cooperation. Residents often believe that providing information will only endanger them without ensuring justice. Resource imbalance. Homicide detectives cite limited manpower and technology. With hundreds of new cases each year, older ones like Arianna's fall into a backlog. Underreported narratives. Women killed within male-associated contexts rarely receive full media attention. Their cases fade quickly, leaving online speculation to fill the void. Arianna's case embodies all of these failures, a victim caught between systemic neglect and community silence. Despite the heavy social media circulation following Arianna's death, mainstream coverage was minimal. Local stations mentioned the shooting briefly, listing her as an adult female victim. No follow-ups, no feature reports. Online, her story spread rapidly. Hashtags like hashtag Arianna and hashtag #JusticeForJari appeared across platforms, but virality did not translate into visibility within the news cycle. The imbalance between social media interest and journalistic coverage reflects a broader issue, the hierarchy of whose stories are deemed newsworthy. Cases lacking celebrity ties, large-scale outrage, or official statements rarely stay in headlines beyond 48 hours. In that gap, misinformation thrives, leaving families to fight both grief and speculation. Arianna's mother has become the primary advocate for her daughter's case. She continues to email city officials, contact detectives, and reach out to journalists for updates. Through community vigils and online memorial pages, she has kept Arianna's name active in conversation. Multiple posts from relatives and supporters express frustration at the absence of justice. Each anniversary, candles are lit at the corner of 76th and Vincennes. She has also joined community meetings focused on female homicide victims, arguing that her daughter's death cannot become another forgotten file. Local anti-violence groups have included Arianna's case in broader campaigns, highlighting the dangers faced by women in high-crime areas. Organizations have used her story to push for legislative reform. Specifically, stronger protection measures for families caught in retaliatory cycles. In public demonstrations, activists emphasize that Arianna's death is not isolated but part of a systemic failure to safeguard women indirectly linked to street conflicts. In response to public criticism, Chicago PD reopened a limited inquiry into the case 6 months later. A dedicated tip line was launched, and Crime Stoppers announced a reward for information leading to an arrest. Despite renewed publicity, the leads that surfaced were weak or unverifiable. Anonymous calls referenced possible suspects, but none provided actionable evidence. The official update: investigation remains ongoing. No arrests made. Even as time moves on, the same questions remain. Was the shooter's target truly Arianna, or was she collateral damage in a message meant for someone else? Did her connection to BA seal her fate, or was she caught in crossfire linked to an unrelated conflict? What happened to the eyewitness who reportedly saw the car pull up beside hers and never returned to testify? The lack of answers deepens the void. Each question left unanswered adds to a growing archive of unsolved stories across Chicago's neighborhoods. The light turned red, then green again, but justice never moved. Those words, spoken during the candlelight vigil months after Arianna's death, capture the essence of the case: movement without progress, time passing without resolution. Arianna Carter's story endures not through police reports but through remembrance. her child, now growing up in the shadow of unanswered questions, represents both her legacy and the cost of inaction. Family members still visit the site where she was killed. They leave flowers and notes, sometimes balloons tied to a lamppost marking the intersection that became her memorial. Online, her social media pages remain active. Friends and followers continue to post tributes, fragments of memory, affection, and frustration that justice has yet to arrive. Arianna G.R.E. Carter's case is more than a single act of violence. It's a mirror reflecting the broader silence engulfing Chicago's unsolved female homicides. Behind the statistics are lives erased, families searching, and communities desensitized to their own tragedies. Until someone speaks, until systems shift, and until truth finds its way past fear, Arianna's story will remain written in the unlit corners of the South Side, one more name waiting for justice to finally move. If you found this story as gripping and heartbreaking as we did, don't forget to like this video and share it with others. And if you want to hear more true crime stories that uncover the mysteries behind these tragic events, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell. You won't want to miss our latest stories, updates, and discussions. Thank you for joining us on this journey to seek justice and explore the truth. Together, we can make a difference. Until next time, stay safe and stay aware.